Good morning, Sir Clemens and friends. So today we are going to discuss about Chapter 8, Foreign Direct Investment. Our group consists of me, Ella, Felice, Latifa, and Ivan. So before we go into the chapter, the opening case for this chapter is foreign direct investment in retailing in India. Historically, the structure of retailing in India was very fragmented with a large number of very small stores serving most of the market. This is because the government there imposed a restriction on direct investment by foreigners in the retail space. And their goal to this restriction is to limit the competition and protect their businesses and protect their local businesses. While on one side, it will benefit consumers and producers from farmers to manufacture, but it's also create a few of problems such as the producer produce currently wasted because chronically underdeveloped supply chains mean that food routes before it reached the market. Hence, to came up with a solution, the government finally created a new policy. In 2011, the plan was to allow foreign multi-brand retailers such as Walmart and Tesco to open retail stores, although they would be limited to a 51% ownership stake. However, this policy many of the local producer and local manufacturer didn't agree with the policy. And then finally, in the early 2012, the India government managed to secure approval for plans to allow foreign single brand retailers to open wholly owned stores, but imposed the requirement that a single brand retailer had to source 30% of its inventory from India. So the policy that the government in India made to manage the foreign direct investment in retailing in India was for multi-brand retailers to be limited to a 51% ownership and stake, while a single brand retailer had to source 30% of its inventory from India. One of the first retailers that respond to these changes was IKEA, which announced that it would invest $1.9 billion and set up 25 stores in the country. And later on in the 2014, Amazon took advantage of this to enter the country and has committed to invest $5 billion to India. Next slide. Uh, from the opening case before. So the introduction for this case is foreign direct investment or FDI occurs when a firm invests directly in facilities to produce or market a good or service in a foreign country. The investment by IKEA and Amazon in India that were discussed in the opening case were the example of FDI. Hence, this chapter begins by looking at the importance of FDI in the world economy. And next, we will review the theories that have been used to explain why enterprise undertake foreign direct investment. Next slide, please. Moving on to the next topic, we have foreign direct investment in the world's economy. So when discussing about foreign direct investment, it is important to distinguish between the flow of FDI and the stock of FDI. Next slide. Trends in FDI. So over the past 25 years, the flow of FDI has accelerated faster than the growth in the world trade and world output. For example, here between 1990 and 2016, the total flow of FDI from all countries increased around sixfold, while world trade by value grew fourfold and world output by around 60%. This can be viewed by the diagram or the figure that shown below. Around in the 90s, the FDI is around $250 billion, and by 2016, the FDI is around $1,500 billion. Next slide. So, from the diagram that I've shown before, we can conclude that FDI has grown more rapidly than world trade and world output for several of reasons. So, there is three reasons. The first one is despite the general decline in trade barriers over the past 30 years, firms still fear protectionist pressures. Executives see FDI as a way of circumventing future trade barriers. Given the rising pressure for protectionism associated with the election of Donald Trump as president in the United States and the decision by the British to leave the European Union, this seems likely to continue for some time. The second reason is much of the increase in FDI has been driven by the political and economic changes that have been occurring in many of the world's developing nations. Across much of Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America, economic growth, economic deregulation, privatization programs that are open to foreign investors, and removal of many restrictions on FDI have made these countries more attractive to foreign multinationals. And the last reason is the globalization of the world's economy is also having a positive effect on the volume of FDI. Many firms see the whole world as their market and they are undertaking FDI in an attempt to make sure they have a significant presence in many regions of the world. Next slide. Next, we have the direction of FDI. So historically, most of FDI has been directed at the development nation of the world. Firms based in advanced countries invested in the others market. United States or developed country here has been an attractive target for FDI because of its large and wealthy domestic markets, its dynamic and stable economy, a favorable political environment, and the openness of the country to FDI. Next slide is going to be presented by my friend.
Next, I will be talking about the source of FDI. So this is the figure from 8.3. This is the cumulative FDI outflows. So the United States has consistently been the largest source country for foreign direct investment or FDI since World War II, with other major source countries including the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Germany, Japan, and France. These countries dominate FDI due to their status of as developed nations with large economies housing many of the largest and best capitalized enterprise. Historically, these nations have been trading nations naturally seeking foreign markets for economic expansions, leading them to be at the forefront of foreign investment trends. Chinese firms have emerged as significant foreign investors with FDI increasing steadily since 2005, reaching $134 billion in 2016, and Hong Kong-based firm accounting for an additional $108 billion. Chinese FDI has mainly targeted extractive industries in less developed nations to gain access to raw materials, driven by China's status as one of the world's largest consumers. These are indications that Chinese firms are shifting focus towards more advanced nations, evident from increased investment in the United States, reaching $16 billion in 2015, up from $846 million in 2003, and substantial takeover bids of Western firms in 2016, especially involving U.S. enterprises. Next slide, please. The form of FDI acquisitions versus greenfield investments. So foreign direct investment can take two main forms. The first one is greenfield acquisition investment, which involve establishing new operations in a foreign country. And the second one is mergers or acquisitions, which involve acquiring or merging with existing firms. Firms prefer mergers and acquisitions over green investments for several reasons. First, they are quicker to execute. So mergers and acquisitions are quicker to execute than greenfield investment. This is an important consideration in the modern business world where markets evolve very rapidly. Many firms apparently believe that if they do not acquire a desirable target firm, then their global rivals will. And the second one is provide access to valuable strategic assets. Foreign firms are acquired because those firms have valuable strategic assets such as brand loyalty, customer relationships, trademarks or patents, distribution systems, production systems, and the like. The last one is allow for the transfer of capital, technology, or management skills. So firms make acquisitions because they believe they can increase the efficiency of the acquired unit by transferring capital, technology, or management skills. However, many mergers and acquisitions fail to achieve their anticipated gains. Next slide, please. This is the theories of foreign direct investment. Why foreign direct investment? So firms opt for FDI despite its expenses and risk compared to exporting and licensing due to the limitation of the latter two options. FDI allows firms to establish direct control over operations, safeguard proprietary assets, and adapt to local market conditions more effectively. Despite its challenges, FDI offer greater potential for long-term profitability and market expansion. So while exporting and licensing may seem less costly and risky initially, they have drawbacks such as limited control over operations, potential loss, proprietary technology, and reliance on intermediaries. So the example is that um, compared to FDI is Burberry's entry into the Japanese market. Initially, Burberry entered Japan through a licensing agreement with a Japanese retailer. While this approach allowed Burberry to access the Japanese market without bearing the costs and risks associated with FDI, it also meant that Burberry had limited control over its brand and operations in Japan. As a result, Burberry may have faced challenges in maintaining brand consistency, controlling distribution channels, and adapting to local market dynamics. Eventually, Burberry may have found that establishing direct operations through FDI offered greater control, flexibility, and potential for long-term success in the Japanese market. Next slide, please. Political ideology and foreign direct investment. This is the limitations of exporting. Exporting physical goods can be limited by transportation costs and trade barriers. Products with low value to weight ratios like cement often find exporting unprofitable due to high transportation costs, leading companies like Cemex to prefer FDI. High value to weight ratio products such as electronic components are less affected by transportation costs and may still find exporting attractive. Firms may also choose FDI in response to actual or potential trade barriers such as tariffs or quotas, which increase the attractiveness of FDI and licensing over exporting. So the example here is that Japanese auto companies expanded FDI in the US due to threats of protectionism and import tariffs on Japanese vehicles. Even the threat of trade barriers can justify FDI as an alternative to exporting. Next slide, please. Limitations of licensing. Licensing has drawbacks such as the risk of giving away valuable technological know-how, lack of control over production, marketing, and the strategy, and limitation when the firm's competitive advantage relies on management and organizational capabilities. Firms opt for FDI when tight control, protection of know-how, and exploitation of organizational capabilities are essential for maximizing profitability in foreign markets. In internationalization theory, also known as the market imperfection approach, explain why firms often prefer foreign direct investment (FDI) over licensing to enter foreign markets. The example is the RCA licensing of color television technology to Japanese companies in the 1960s resulted in those companies like Matsushita and Sony quickly assimilating the technology and com- competing directly against RCA in its home market. This led to RCA being relegated to a minor player while the Japanese companies gained a significant market share. Next slide, please. Strategic behavior. FDI flows can be seen as a reflection of strategic rivalry among firms in the global marketplace, particularly in oligopolistic industries where firms exhibit imitative behavior. FT Knickerbocker's theory suggests that firms in oligopolies imitate each other's FDI moves to avoid being at a competitive disadvantage. This imitative behavior extends to multi-point competition where firms match each other's move in different markets to maintain balance. While Knickerbocker's theory explains imitative FDI behavior, it doesn't address why the firm chooses FDI over exporting or licensing, nor does it evaluate the efficiency of FDI compared to other entry modes. Internalization theory complements Knickerbocker's theory by addressing these aspects, making it favored by many economists. However, both theories provide valuable insights into motivations and behaviors of firms in the global marketplace. Next slide, please. The eclectic paradigm, advocated by John Dunning, emphasizes the significance of location-specific advantage in explaining foreign direct investment (FDI). These advantages arise from utilizing resources or assets tied to a particular foreign location, which complement a firm's unique capabilities. Dunning argues that FDI is often necessary to combine a firm's capabilities with location-specific assets such as natural resources or skilled labor. Dunning theories provides valuable insights into how location factors influence the direction of FDI. I have an example here. The oil companies invest where oil is located to combine their technological capabilities with valuable resources. Silicon Valley serves as like the example for this, where the concentration of intellectual talent and knowledge spillovers creates location-specific advantages in the computer and semiconductor industries. Foreign firms invest in regions like Silicon Valley to access and benefit from these knowledge spillovers, gaining a competitive edge in the global marketplace. The next slide will be presented by my friend.
Okay, so for the next slide is about political ideology and foreign direct investment. There are some views regarding this, and the first one is the radical view. So radical writers argue that the multinational enterprise or MNE is an instrument of imperialist domination. They argue that uh, MNEs extract profits from the host country and take them to their home country, giving nothing of value to the host country in exchange. So they see the MNE as a tool for exploiting host countries to exclusive benefit of their capitalist imperialist home countries. According to this, According to this view, no country should allow FDI. So the radical view is very influential in the world of economy from 1945 to 1980s until the collapse of communism between 1989 and 1991. After that, the radical position was in retreat. There are three reasons for this. The first one is the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe. The second one is the generally abysmal economic performance of those countries that embrace the radical position, starting to believe that FDI can be an important source of technology and jobs and can stimulate economic growth. The third one is the strong economic performance of those developing countries that embrace capitalism rather than a radical ideology. Next slide, please. The second view is the free market view. So the free market view argues that international production should be distributed among countries according to the theory of comparative advantage. So we discussed about theory of comparative advantage in the chapter 6, I think. Yeah. Then, the free market view argues that FDI is a benefit to both the source country and the host country. So within this framework, the MNE is an instrument for dispersing the production of goods and services to the most efficient locations around the globe. Viewed this way, FDI by the MNE increases the overall efficiency of the world economy. So it's called the radical view. The free market view stresses that resource transfers benefits to the host country and stimulates economic growth. Slide. The third, the third view is pragmatic nationalism. So FDI can benefit. Is my I'm sorry. Is my voice audible or putus-putus ya suara gua? Tes tes. Okay, wait. I'm sorry. So I'm sorry. For the pragmatic nationalism, so FDI can benefit a host country by bringing capital, skills, technology, and jobs, but those benefits come at a cost. So many countries are also concerned that a foreign-owned manufacturing plant may import many components from its home country, which has negative implications for the host country balance of payment position. So uh, when a foreign company rather than domestic company produce a product, the profits from that investment go abroad. So recognizing this, countries adopting a pragmatic stance pursue policies designed to maximize the national benefits and minimize the national cost. So according to this view, FDI should be allowed so long and the benefits outweigh the cost. So for example, this case is Japan. So until the 1980s, Japan policies was probably one of the most restrictive among countries adopting a pragmatic stance. Japan blocked the majority of applications to invest in Japan. However, there are some firms that had important technology were often permitted to undertake FDI. Some that companies is like IBM or Texas Instruments. Uh, uh, in this case, they insisted that they will either license their technology to Japanese firm nor enter into a joint venture with a Japanese enterprise. Next slide, please. Okay. Next one is benefits and costs of FDI. So this one from host country benefits. The first one is resource transfer effects. So regarding to capital, many MNEs have access to financial resource not available to host country firms. So large MNEs find, may find it easier to borrow money from capital markets than host country firms would. So FDI can make positive contribution to a host economy by supplying capital, technology, and management resources that would otherwise not be available and boost that country economic growth. So uh, for that capital, I already uh, say that MNEs have access to financial resources not available to host country firms. And then as for technology, it can stimulate economic development and industrialization. Many countries that lack the research and development must rely on advanced industrialized nations for much of the technology required to stimulate economic growth, and FDI can provide it. And for management resources, foreign managers trained in the latest management techniques can often help improve the efficiency of operations in the host country. And the second one is supposed to be the for the next one is supposed to be employment effects. So FDI brings jobs to a host country that would otherwise not be created here. So direct effect arise when a foreign MNE employs a number of host country citizens. Indirect effects arise when jobs are created in local suppliers. So as a result of the investment and when jobs are created because of increased local spending by employees of the MNE. Next slide, please. And then next one is balance of payments effects. So a country balance of payments accounts track both of its payments to and its received from other countries. So government normally concerned when their country is running a deficit on the current account of their balance of payments. So the, there are two ways in which FDI can help a country achieve these goals. The first one is if the FDI is a substitute for imports of goods or services. So the effect can be improved can be to improve the current account of the host country balance of payments. And then the second one is when the MNE uses a foreign subsidiary to export goods and services. And then the next one is effect on competition and economic growth. When FDI takes the form of a greenfield investment, the result is to establish a new enterprise, increasing the number of players in a market and customer choice. In turn, this can increase the level of competition in national market. So increased competition tends to stimulate capital investment by firms in plant, equipment, and R&D as they struggle to gain an edge over their rivals. And the long-term results may include increased productivity growth, product and process innovation, and greater economic growth. And the next slide will be presented by Salsa.
Okay, so now that we've heard from Velis about how foreign direct investments can give these countries such benefits for the host countries, we're gonna see about, well, what about the home countries? What are the costs that they may have to bear, and why they can get kind of hesitant at some times when it comes to receiving foreign direct investments? So the first one, it's about the balance of payment of the country. So, first one, we got initial investment. The money leaving the country to invest abroad can hurt the balance of payment. So, this is usually temporary because hopefully the the investment done abroad will give more money to more than the initial capital, but again, it can be a serious problem when the home country itself is currently dealing with many problems within the country. The second one is lost exports. So when the foreign investment is used to make products abroad for the home market, they will get less exports from their own country. So they might have to get more imports as opposed to exports. And then the third one is import substitution. If FDI replaces direct exports, the home country imports more and imports exports less, as I've mentioned before, and it will worsen the balance of payments. Second kind of concern is about job losses. So when companies invest abroad to produce goods cheaper, like Toyota did, they may like lay off their workers at home because it's cheaper outside there. Why would we have to worry about it here? It's also the same thing that happens with for example, X-rays and radiologists and some of these industries. It's kind of expensive to do them in to do readings in America, so they will oftentimes take a picture of it and then send it to a doctor in India because it's much cheaper to do the readings because they basically do the same thing but with much lower cost. And this leads to worry that it may incentivize hospitals to just do this rather than hiring radiologists from within America. So yeah, sending money and jobs abroad can hurt the home country's economy in a few ways, especially if there's already unemployment, which is an issue in every country. So that's why a lot of countries are sometimes restricting towards FDIs. Right. So when it comes to the one that we see before, the worries, although it is true that countries have a worry that companies moving factories abroad or offshoring will hurt the home economy, such as with offshore productions and job loss fear. Experts have been saying, though, that the benefits might outweigh the negatives, including the first one is that companies can focus on what they do best at home, potentially creating more jobs overall. So if they can, roughly speaking, if they can just no, if they can just offshore the easy jobs, simpler jobs to someone else outside the country, the ones here can be utilized to do more complicated jobs and further improve the industry even. And then second one is cheaper production abroad leads to lower prices for consumers back home. Because as we've seen in previous chapters as well, when something is good advantageous for the producers, it may be a disadvantage to consumers and vice versa. So we can't deny that even us here in Indonesia, sometimes we get imported goods from China that are way cheaper than if we were to buy them from stores in Indonesia. That's basically how it is. Consumers love cheaper prices, but yet there is a need for government to be able to have a balance here so that producers don't get affected too much. And then the third one is if companies can't offshore, they might lose to competitors who do, hurting the economy in the long run. So if governments restrict FDIs entirely because they need to support the industry within the country, um, other main players in the industry from other countries, they may get the advantage from this, and so the home country here may just get a disadvantage from this policy as opposed to helping the local producers. Right. So now that we've seen the benefits and also the cost that might need to be reconsidered by a country, let's talk about what the governments have, which is the policy instruments, and how they interact with these foreign direct investments. How can they, for example, here we have the policies that encourages outward foreign direct investments. So these are the policies that help um, to support foreign investments to outside of this home country. So, governments play a role in helping their companies invest abroad by reducing risks, making it cheaper, and even pressuring other countries to be more open. Investors countries help their companies invest abroad in a few ways. The first one is insurance. The second one is taxes, and the second one is loans, and then the third one is taxes. So let's talk about the insurance, for example. So they offer government-backed insurance to protect companies from risk like political instability. So if even if there's a war, if there's any takeovers of the country, they give this insurance that the company will stay safe or something like that. With loans, some developed countries provide special loans through the government banks to help companies invest in developing countries. And taxes. So many countries avoid taxing companies twice on the same income earned abroad. So there is no double taxation, which can really help these producers and companies. And sometimes they can do political muscle. As I have here a picture of Toys R Us, which was a famous toy store in the US. The US pressured Japan to allow Toys R Us to open stores in Japan, and they did able to do that. Now, there are policies that restricts outward foreign direct investments because as I've mentioned before, the cost here is that they might lose a lot of exports and so on. So yeah, they have controlled outward FDI at times. Controls can be for economic, such as balance of payments or jobs, as I've mentioned before, and it can also be for political reasons. So businesses can really be a powerful tool for a for a country when it comes to wars and power issues and something like that. So yeah, and here we have the host country policy. So countries used to be stricter about foreign investment, sometimes even banning it. Now they are trying to find a balance between attracting investment, which is free market, and protecting their own interest, which is pragmatic um, nationalism. So for political reasons, countries might ban or discourage investments in certain nations due to opposing ideologies, such as the US versus China, um, and then something like that. And then there's also to pressure a country to change its policies. So the US used to pressure South Africa on apartheid, something like that. Right. Next is about encouraging inward foreign direct investment. So this is encouraging other countries to do foreign direct investment to the home country. So governments compete to attract foreign investment with tax breaks, loans, and subsidies. So this is done to gain benefits from foreign direct investment, such as job creation and technology transfer that Ivan has already explained before, if I'm not mistaken. So the reason why these countries do this is because a lot of times industries have a lot of needs requires a lot of resources. So for example, in Indonesia, we have a lot of nickel, we have a lot of uh, something of that kind of thing. And so when other countries with more developed technologies, more developed industry, materials and machines and people, engineers and so on, they want to invest in countries that have this many nickel. In many nickel, Indonesia will try to gain their investment by maybe giving them the loans, giving them subsidies, or giving them tax breaks. Next is restricting inward foreign direct investment. So the first one is ownership restraints. It limits how much foreign companies can own in a local business. This can be a complete ban or a partial ownership. So some a foreign company cannot fully own a business or something like that. And then the second one is performance requirements. It's to force foreign companies to operate in a certain way, such as forcing to use local content, pushes exports, do technology transfer, and hire local management. So governments use these controls to protect their own interests, like national security or helping local businesses to grow. They also hope to get more benefits from foreign investment, such as new technology and also jobs. Um, so yeah, so for ownership restraints, for example, foreigners can own businesses in certain sectors, and for partial ownership is that foreigners can invest, but locals must hold a majority of the shares. Um, so when it comes to these, first one, the local content, they need to use like locally produced materials. So for a car, the parts needs to be produced in Indonesia. And so they have to sell a certain amount of products overseas to get more exports to the home country. And they need to hire local people for the management positions. The local people cannot just be the white collar ones, the blue collar ones, but they need to also be in the management positions. And they also need to share the knowledge and skills with local workers. And the reason why is because it aims to balance the benefits and drawbacks of foreign investment for the host country. And ownership restraints here are more rigid, such as how much ownership of a company can have, while performance requirements focus on how the company operates. Next is about, okay, so we've seen how the government can have these tools to limit and also to encourage foreign direct investments. Now we're going to see international institutions and the liberalization of foreign direct investment. So the WTO has become a player in regulating FDI, especially for services. So when it comes to services, it's not it's just about service. So, a haircut at the salon, for example, it aims for freer movement of investment. Before the 1990s, no international rules governed foreign investment. Countries set their own terms, and the WTO was formed in 1995 to regulate this. They promotes trade and in which not just becomes when it comes to goods, but also to services. However, efforts to create universal FDI rules haven't been successful. Developing countries are hesitant, possibly fearing less control over their economy because they really require um, some sort of control over their developing economy, of course. And also, not all countries are the same when it comes to values and policies. So it is a challenge for WTO to create a single set of global rules that can apply to all foreign direct investments. So that is all from our group. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.